Tunis, a North African city of tradition and transformation. And at its heart, a museum with secrets, dark and strange. How to cheat death in the Sahara. How to kill a gladiator. How the catapult toppled an empire. And the surprising location of a galaxy far, far away. Secrets hidden in plain sight inside the Bardo National Museum. If you travel down the boot of Italy and stand on the southern tip of Sicily, you can see Africa. Across the water is a nation called Tunisia. Just 300 kilometers wide, Tunisia stretches south from the Mediterranean, through fertile farmland that becomes dry steppes and finally, the desert wastes of the Sahara. Tunisia combines European, African, and Middle Eastern influences. A blend of cultures that is reflected in the Bardo National Museum. Inside is evidence that Tunisia was colonized by the Arabs. Before them, the Romans. Before them, the Carthaginians. And throughout Tunisia's history, Berber tribes have made its deserts their home. A few decades ago, these deserts were invaded by another tribe, led by a Hollywood director named George Lucas. Lucas chose Tunisia as the shooting location for Star Wars. The desert became the planet Tatooine, a name borrowed from a nearby town. This is what's left of the movie's spaceport.
We don't need to see his identification.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
Not far away is the set for Luke Skywalker's boyhood home, the Lars homestead.
Luke! Luke!
Every year, the sets attract Star Wars fans from around the world.
Everybody loves the movie, you know. It's very famous in Korea too.
When this set fell into decay, some super fans teamed up to repair it. For them, it's a revered icon, with Tunisia just a convenient backdrop. But in reality, the connections between Star Wars and Tunisia run deep. Where to find them is a museum secret. The investigation begins with an arrival at the Tunis airport. Terry Cooper, a British science fiction illustrator, has made the Star Wars pilgrimage several times.
I saw Star Wars in 1977 as an 8-year-old, and that's one of the, obviously a big blockbuster at the time. It changed the way films were made, and it kind of changed my life. Because as an 8-year-old, watching a film like Star Wars just tells you anything's possible.
On this trip, Terry's guide will be a young man from Tatooine. The town, not the planet. His name is Rad Adala. Rad is also a Star Wars fan, but he sees it from a Tunisian perspective.
So as you see, it looks just like the Lars homestead, and that's originally from the Muslim architecture. So there is one there, one there, one up there.
This architecture appears in Star Wars, with the addition of an extra sun.
I think it was a very wise move for George Lucas's part. There was this completely alien culture and feel to these buildings that no one had ever seen, and it was very clever of him to take that at the time.
Down these stairs is another Star Wars connection. For centuries, Berber tribes built dwellings underground to beat the heat. It looks like a Star Wars set, but it's a real home. The couple who live here have turned one room into a tiny museum.
It has all the traditional Berber things, like the traditional art, craft. carpet.
The woman of the house weaves cloth in the traditional Berber way.
And here we have the Berber clocks.
Okay.
You just put it as a robe and
Over your head, like this.
exactly.
Okay.
Leave it.
You can see where they got the Jedi Knights idea.
Yep.
But while traditional Berbers are nomadic traders, the Jedi are warrior monks who strive to become one with an unseen force.
Through the Force, things you will see, other places, the future, the past.
The Jedi are mystics, and it so happens that the Star Wars sets are near the spiritual home of Islamic mystics called Sufis. Sufis are famous for a whirling dance that looks a bit like a Jedi fighting move. But the connection here is not the spinning. The Jedi religion may have been inspired by Sufi beliefs.
They even sometimes have a vision
Okay.
for the future. They can
Right.
see the future.
Okay.
This
Right.
is the myth.
Just like the miracles.
Exactly.
When night falls, Terry and Rad accept a rare invitation to witness a Sufi ritual that few outsiders have ever seen. Some Muslims think that Sufis are not true followers of Islam, but Sufi master Munir Maisa strongly disagrees.
إذن التصوف في قالبه تمسكنا بكتاب الله والأصل الصحيح هو التمسك بالكتاب.
Sufis believe that music can help believers achieve a higher state of being.
تنتج من خلال استعماله إلى ظاهرة ما كالاستشعار عن بعد. إذا أردنا أن نتحدث أكثر علمية.
These men are all hoping that the change will happen to them. And for one believer, it does. He appears to have fallen into a trance state. The Sufis believe he's been touched by the divine.
It creates a big impression on people, even on me, because it strengthens and reinforces their beliefs, and it underlines the seriousness and the devotion to their faith.
Before Terry heads home to England, he wants to pay a visit to this Star Wars set one last time. He not only likes it, he was one of the superfans who restored it.
Good,
The
actually.
weather's beginning to take its toll, but it's no longer bright as it was.
Yeah.
The first time I ever went there, I felt like I'd stepped through the screen into the film, because it's all around you. The heat, the sand, the look of the place, the exotic locations. You feel like you're standing right in the middle of Tatooine. If Luke Skywalker went to the country Tunisia, the first thing he would say was, "It looks just like my home."
Up next, the secret of conquering an impenetrable wall. Inside the Bardo National Museum, one gallery displays artifacts found just a few kilometers away, in the ruins of the ancient city of Carthage. 23 centuries ago, Carthage controlled most of North Africa. Its biggest rival was the powerful Roman Empire, and its best general was a man named Hannibal. In 218 BC, Hannibal led an army of men and elephants around the Mediterranean to attack Rome. He won many battles, but finally lost the war. After his death, Roman legions sailed to North Africa, bent on revenge. But the city was protected by a formidable wall.
The Romans sieged Carthage, and they tried to breach the walls from different sides. There was a triple wall, doubled by triple trenches, but walls which were 9 meters thick.
Over a 3-year siege of the city, Rome's heaviest weapons failed to break through. Its army suffered massive casualties. But historians know the Romans took Carthage somehow, because today, within the ruins of the city, there is evidence that its buildings were destroyed. How the Romans conquered Carthage is a museum secret. The investigation begins at the museum with the arrival of British historian Tracy Reel. Tracy believes she will discover the key to Rome's conquest of Carthage in an artifact recovered off a nearby coast at the bottom of the sea.
An ancient ship probably got blown off course in a storm and sank off Mardia on the coast of Tunisia.
In a storeroom of the museum, she finds salvaged items from an ancient Roman shipwreck. This case holds what she was hoping to find: a bronze cylinder from a Roman catapult.
They're the key part of the machine because if we find a washer, we can reconstruct the rest of the catapult just on the basis of that one part.
You might expect it to look something like this. But the museum's reconstruction isn't nearly so big. And that's just what Tracy expected.
Quite a large proportion of the archaeological evidence is for small caliber weapons that could be carried by one person.
The catapult is powered by rope, wound tightly into a spring.
And if I pull it back, you'll get some idea. You get some idea of the discharge velocity.
Tracy knows that catapults like this one were used during the siege of Carthage, but their tactical value can't be determined inside the museum. So she heads to Coventry, England, where Roman reenactors have built rope-powered catapults of various sizes. Today they will be put to the test, with the help of historian Len Morgan.
Maneuver this up.
Hello, I'm Tracy.
Nice to meet you.
And you. I've heard a lot about your machine.
Yeah, the big one, we call it the Beast. It's a 2 libra or 2-pounder stone thrower, ballista. And the smaller machine is the smallest catapult, the arrow shooter. And the further one is a 3-span catapult. Each of these machines are the standard piece of equipment that would have been used in the Roman army.
During a siege, the Beast would have lobbed small balls into the city, creating havoc, but not knocking down the walls.
They're also very good, obviously, dropping into a mass crowd of warriors or whatever, enemy. Try that.
Oh, OK. Can I go the other way around?
Yeah,
Tracy believes the smallest catapult might have been fired almost like a rifle. Again, not useful for knocking down walls.
Yeah.
But what about the mid-size model, the one most like the catapult in the museum? It's light and easy to set up, but it requires an expert hand to prepare it for battle.
To the bowstring, and then push the snake into position to lock it. Ratchets go back on. Number 2 will start winding on. And you place the bolt in position on the slider and fit it back into the trigger.
The first target will be a double sheet of steel. Tracy has never fired this catapult before.
Right, OK.
Even so, she scores a direct hit.
It is feet, but we hit him.
Got him in the foot.
Yeah.
So that's the point of impact. You've got a hole on the first sheet and a hole through the second sheet. So that's 1.2 millimeters, and we've punched through.
This suggests the catapult's real purpose.
So it's anti-personnel. It's the small-scale stuff. They probably would have been used for wall-clearing duties.
At the siege of Carthage, the Romans finally stopped trying to go through the walls and began to build a firing platform.
The whole idea was that you're higher than the city wall so that your troops can shoot down on the defenders. And the Carthaginians' first thought was that, oh, this is impossible, they'll never achieve it. But the Romans were nothing if not persistent.
When the platform was complete, Roman soldiers rushed to the top, carrying catapults in pieces. They assembled their weapons and began to fire. Carthaginian arrows were no match for the powerful and accurate catapults, which took out the defenders one by one. The Romans didn't need to knock down the walls because they could now scale them with impunity. And when they did, the story takes a darker turn, still evident back here in the ruins of Carthage.
Bones, thousands of them.
They're all over, aren't they?
Here, a good example could be a tibia, you know, a leg. So there you see a shoulder bone. Here you have another one there, could be a human.
The Romans believed there was only one way to ensure that Carthage never threatened their empire again. Every building was razed. Every man, woman, and child was slaughtered. It was the first genocide in recorded history. And it may never have happened without the catapult. Up next, did the priests of Carthage commit child sacrifice? Inside Tunisia's Bardo National Museum, the Gallery of Carthage contains the likeness of a pagan god named Baal Hamon. Since the 1st century AD, Baal has been associated with a dark ritual. Witnesses describe priests holding babies above a fire. As music drowns their mother's screams, the young ones are hurled into the flames. These terrible events were recorded by ancient Greek and Roman historians. Then, in the early 20th century, in the ruins of Carthage, archaeologists discovered evidence. Near the city's main cemetery, they found a smaller one they named the Tophet. Tophet is Hebrew for roasting place. Here they pieced together stone markers, including one that is now in the Bardo Museum. It shows a priest grasping a tiny child.
This was, for many scholars, the evidence that these Carthaginians were, sacrificing their babies.
Then, in the 1970s, PBS filmed American researchers as they excavated the cemetery's graves. The team was led by biblical archaeologist Lawrence Steger. A young anthropologist named Jeffrey Schwartz was put in charge of collecting the bones.
It seems fairly certain that entire individuals were placed in the urn. This one is reasonably burned.
There were 540 tiny skeletons, revealing the scale of the horrors reported in antiquity.
Some of the classical sources suggest that the infants were thrown in alive.
Today, the people of Carthage are remembered as baby killers. But the real truth is a museum secret. Our investigation begins with the arrival of an older, grayer Jeffrey Schwartz, who has come to revisit the research he did as a young man.
I started my career doing more biblical archaeology than anything else, and had been trained to analyze human bones and animal bones.
After his team's initial findings were made public, he began looking for bones that might fit together.
I've got some ribs, I've got neck vertebrae. You can piece together pieces of face. It's just wild to bring these things to life that way.
Jeffrey discovered that many urns in the Tophet contained the bones of more than one child. This does not match the ritual burial described in some classical sources, which he and others were beginning to doubt.
The history of Carthage is known through the literature of the Greeks or the Romans, and those were the enemies of Carthage. And when you have the history written by the victor, it's completely biased.
Jeffrey decided that to uncover the whole truth, he would need to look beyond the Tophet cemetery to determine where the rest of the Carthaginians were buried. In museum archives, he found a surprising answer. The main cemetery of Carthage contained adults, but no young children at all.
The general population in the main cemetery starts at about 5, and that's where my sample more or less stops.
And since natural child mortality was high in ancient times, Jeffrey wondered if the stone marker in the museum could have a different interpretation.
it's been interpreted as this is a priest bringing a child to be sacrificed, but there isn't just one interpretation of it. If you look at this little thing, it looks slumped over in this priest's or this person's arm. It has absolutely no facial expression whatsoever. So another way you can interpret it is that this was a dead child or infant, and it was being taken to a special burial place.
Geoffrey theorized that the Tophet was simply the graveyard where all the young children of Carthage were buried, not an evil sanctuary for baby sacrifice. His colleagues reacted with shocked disbelief.
I was confronted by people who were really wedded to the sacrifice. Everything here had to be sacrificed.
To find proof that babies died from natural causes, he made detailed measurements of every bone. Many seemed extremely small. He wondered if they might be the bones of fetuses that had died in the womb. Geoffrey knew for every live birth, the moment of birth is recorded in the teeth.
Before you're born, enamel is laid down in a certain wavy pattern. And the first insult you have in your life is when you're born. It's a big shock. You actually see a break in the wavy pattern in the microstructure of the teeth. And that's called the neonatal line.
More than half the samples from the Tophet cemetery lack the neonatal line. This is definitive proof that most babies in the Tophet were stillborn. So they weren't roasted alive in sacrifice. They had already died and were brought here for cremation. This suggests a culture that cared deeply for children, even the unborn.
It gives a more realistic picture of the Carthaginians, I think. There was something special about this place, and it was a place to receive the young, no matter how they died.
Geoffrey has rejected some of the assumptions he held when he was younger. And as he continues to delve into the past, to investigate the archaeological record, he takes with him the lessons he learned in Carthage.
I think what I've relearned is to use your own eyes, not to receive wisdom, and just to do as good a science as you can, and let the cards fall where they may.
Up next, the secrets of the gladiator games. Inside the Bardo National Museum, there is evidence that when Rome ruled Tunisia, North Africans enjoyed Roman-style entertainment. The men in this mosaic are gladiators. They were involved, along with exotic animals, in a violent spectacle called the Gladiator Games. In Hollywood depictions, the games take place in Rome's Colosseum. Before a bloodthirsty crowd, lions devour Christians. Unlucky slaves do battle. And the emperor gives the deciding thumbs up or thumbs down. It appears to be all about pain and death. But how the gladiators really lived and died is a museum secret. Our investigation begins 200 kilometers south of the museum in the town of El Jem. While most movies show only Rome's Colosseum, in reality, similar amphitheaters were built in every Roman colony. El Jem's Colosseum is one of the biggest anywhere. This local guide knows why.
El Jem became, at the Roman time, a very rich town for the trade of olive oil. They decide to build this Colosseum to say to Roma that they have a lot of money and they can build a Colosseum like the Colosseum of Roma.
The massive architecture extends well below the ground.
These rooms, it's for the animals. The lions wait here the games. And from this hall, they go up the lines with hand lift to arena to start the game.
Not far from the animal cages, gladiators prepared for battle. And today, It's where several men are preparing for gladiator school. They aren't actors or stuntmen. They're historians who strive to recreate the authentic fighting techniques. In Roman times, gladiators were owned by private games promoters who spent great sums on weapons and training. They hoped to make a profit on ticket sales. Movies that imply that the emperor put on the games are wrong. And so is this. The famous thumbs down gesture never happened. The sign for death was something else.
Il va tendre son pouce en direction de son adversaire, comme s'il tendait une arme en direction du gladiateur soumis.
The Hollywood version comes from a French painting of the 19th century. It was never seen in a real Colosseum. And the gesture for mercy was different too.
Le pouce enfermé dans la main, comme l'arme rangée dans son fourreau.
In the movies, the fights are no holds barred. But Roman mosaics reveal the presence of referees.
On a même une mosaïque où on voit un arbitre retenir le bras parce que dans la fougue du combat, on est pris dans le combat, on peut aller jusqu'au bout.
A referee's job was to keep opponents from killing each other.
Si on avait le droit de tuer son adversaire, ce n'est pas la peine d'apprendre, d'aller dans une école.
Games promoters wanted their gladiators to stay alive, especially those who impressed the crowds. The best gladiators were revered like today's sports heroes and movie stars, and they might even see their names in stone. The artist who made this mosaic portrayed specific famous gladiators and even captured their post-game banter.
Donc l'un dit « divertissons-nous », l'autre il dit « nous sommes venus pour boire », il y a un troisième qui dit « mettons-nous nus ».
And while in the movies only unknown Christians face wild animals, in reality, animal fighters were often the most famous gladiators of all.
Ah oui, ils étaient très célèbres. Le chasseur, on doit imaginer que c'était lui la star du spectacle parce qu'il risquait sa vie à chaque spectacle.
The animals did not have an easy meal. In fact, they were almost always killed. The festival of violence would climax with a battle between two stars. Their goal was not to kill or maim each other, but to put on an exciting show. So serious wounds were rare, but they did happen. In the movies, this is the moment when an emperor might allow the loser to live, to recover from his wounds. But in reality, serious wounds couldn't be treated, and everyone in the Colosseum knew it. The wounded man would gesture for a decision, and so to end the gladiator's suffering, the game's promoter would make the sign for death.
On va lui apporter une arme bien tranchante et pointue qu'il va lui-même saisir. Le gladiateur soumis saisit l'arme et c'est lui qui fait le geste de se tuer.
As the gladiator committed suicide, it's likely the crowd fell silent. But not for long, because in the Roman Empire, the appetite for violent entertainment was insatiable. And so the show must go on. Next on Museum Secrets, a very desirable Roman bath. Inside the Bardo National Museum, this gallery reveals how the people of Carthage and North Africa were changed by the Roman conquest. The mosaics are in a Roman style, but were made by colonized North Africans. They displayed Roman mosaics in their homes and worshipped Roman gods. But for those who aspired to be Roman in every way, there was a problem. True Romans washed, networked, and flirted at public baths. This pleasurable tradition required hundreds of liters of water per person per day. In Roman Italy, there was plenty of water to achieve the Roman lifestyle. But North Africa is a dry land for much of the year. For the 500,000 people of Roman Carthage, there was hardly enough water to drink, let alone for public baths. When Emperor Hadrian learned of the shortage, he demanded that Roman Carthage be supplied with abundant water without delay. How did his subjects tackle the problem? That is our museum's secret. The story begins in Tunis, a modern city built on the ruins of Roman Carthage. Its water supply is pumped up from reservoirs and the nearby Milian River watershed. But in ancient times, these were not viable water sources because the Romans didn't have pumps. The city required water from a high elevation, so it could flow by gravity alone. Such a source existed at the sacred mountain spring called Zaguan. Roman engineers were sent to make this water flow to Carthage. And today, British historian Ole Martin has come here too, to find out what they did.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you know, I often think of the person that was given the job to start with, you know, and you think, where do you start with all of this?
Water can only be seen at the bottom of a deep shaft. But in ancient times, water filled this pool 300 meters above Roman Carthage.
Well, assuming that we've now found the best source, here we now need to look across that plain, and the first thing we need to do, really, is get an idea, roughly, of which direction we need to build it.
The direction is northeast. The distance is 75 kilometers. In Rome, engineers had constructed long gravity-fed aqueducts. Here, they would need to adapt this technology for North Africa's rough terrain.
Of course, it's highly unlikely that your aqueduct is going to be able to run in a straight line. The whole thing is gravity run, so it must be a nice sloping gradient, good enough to run the water but not too steep. This is where you need your expert surveyors to walk this ground and see where they can get this decent gradient. Do you go round the hill? Do you tunnel through the hill? Do you go over the valley by bridging it? So all of these are problems that the Roman engineers have got to think about.
Once the engineers made a general plan, they needed precise curves and angles. And so they employed a Roman innovation, a surveyor's tool.
So here we have a groma, almost a symbol of a Roman engineer, really. Now, to get a straight line, which is what this thing is used for, you simply stand here and you're going to line up those three strings. We're going to send an assistant out with a pole, however far we want him to, move him left and right until the pole is lined up with the three strings, and there we have a straight line. Now, the other thing you can use it for is to measure 90 degrees, a right angle.
This tool allowed the engineers to produce a blueprint of the shortest possible route. It snaked around mountains, over valleys, and through hilltops for 128 kilometers. For an aqueduct this long, the gradient had to be just 2 meters per kilometer. To the unaided eye, the slope appears horizontal. And so another Roman invention was needed.
Here we have a charabates, an instrument for measuring level. It's basically a level plank. We have 4 plumb lines hanging down, and in the center, we have a trough, which we are going to fill with water. As long as the water touches the top of all 4 sides, we know it must be level.
Armed with their level and blueprints, the engineers announced that building could begin. Roman overseers enslaved North Africans to do the job. As a colonized people, they had no right to refuse. For 10 long years, they dug tunnels, hauled stone, and erected arches until they numbered in the thousands. And then the engineer's design was put to the crucial test. From the sacred pool of Zaguan, water flowed briskly down half-buried pipes, and then more slowly through channels over valleys and through hillsides. The precious water crept along, kilometer after kilometer, until it crossed above the Milian River into the stone reservoirs of Roman Carthage. But how much water had been delivered? Was there enough for a Roman bath, or only enough to drink? The answer is hidden in plain sight in the Bardo Museum. In Roman mosaics, images of fish and ocean waves were used for the floors of Roman baths. Their presence in Carthage reveals that the aqueduct was a success.
In many ways, we think of the Romans as all-conquering people. We all hear about the Roman army and stuff like this, and perhaps sometimes we don't remember that the Romans are also great engineers. To be able to achieve this 2,000 years ago is quite amazing.
And their achievement provided a colonized people with even more than a pleasant bath. It gave them the Roman lifestyle. By the emperor's command, those who lived as Romans could be granted the rights of Roman citizens who could not be enslaved. In a dry land, water is valuable, but human rights are priceless. Next on Museum Secrets, how to stay alive in the Sahara. The Bardo National Museum displays treasures of Tunisia's Islamic heritage. There are several pages of an ancient holy book known as the Blue Quran. They are among the most valuable paper artifacts in the world. And near the scripture, there's an example of Islamic science. This astrolabe is an Arab take on a Greek invention.
Son principe donc mathématique a été fait depuis 3 siècles avant Jésus-Christ avec Apollonius. Fort ancien, il est très développé en astronomie arabe.
Astrolabes were used by Arab seafarers to navigate the ocean, and by those who dared to enter the Sahara Desert. When sighted on the noonday sun, an astrolabe reveals a traveler's distance from the equator and from your destination. It's an important tool for navigation, but it won't help you survive. The Sahara is one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth, and historians believe it's getting worse.
The story of the Sahara since climate change occurred about 5,000 years ago is that the level of groundwater has gradually gone down. The Sahara has been a hyper-arid desert for the last 5,000 years.
How to stay alive in the Sahara is a museum secret. Our investigation begins with a gathering of Berber tribesmen. Caravan leader Fawzi Bouali and his crew are preparing to enter the Sahara. It may look like they belong here, but they are as vulnerable in the desert as anyone. Luckily for them, their ancestors domesticated the camel. In the past, Berbers braved the desert for trade and profit. A camel caravan from one side to the other was a 4-month journey.
There must have been caravans of hundreds of camels, perhaps even thousands of camels in the peak years. And it says a lot, I think, about the consumer demand in the central Sahara. They wanted the Roman tableware, that nice red glossy pottery, things like textiles, salt, the dates from the oases. And we know that gold from West Africa is one of the key commodities.
The camel is well suited to these long desert caravans because of the large amount of water it can store in its hump.
The camel in one time he can drink 50 liters water. For this reason he can stay for weeks. In Sahara even there is no place for water.
But that's only one of its adaptations.
The camel has this extraordinary splay-toed foot, which is very effective in traversing sand. It also has well-adapted eyes and ears and lips and whiskers that sort of keep out the dust when it's blowing around. It also has the ability to vary its body temperature in a way that other mammals simply don't have. Its body temperature can go from about 89 degrees Fahrenheit up to about 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, that would kill you or me.
requiring only spiny grass for fuel. The camel provides reliable transport between water sources that are sometimes hundreds of kilometers apart. In the Sahara, if a lone traveler loses their camel, they can easily die. So if a camel wanders off, it's critical to know how to find it.
Everyone knows his trace of his camel. Even if you put his camel in 100 camel, and he knows his feet is of his camel.
But while Berbers depend on their camels for survival, the camels depend on the Berbers too.
I mean, even your wonderful camels, they cannot endure without finding a water source. You've got to know where the water sources are. That's the crucial thing.
It's by experience. The camel need water we find only with knowledge. Because Sahara is not very easy.
In the desert, survival can depend on convincing a camel to cooperate. This camel is ready and willing. This one, not so much.
He make noisy in the beginning. Its mean is very young.
شد لا راس اللوط هبط لا راس اللوط خلنا نركض هبط لا راس اللوط هبط راس اللوط.
Camels are extraordinary animals, but they also have very nasty tempers.
Experienced Berbers do not respond with anger or abuse, because camels, like elephants, never forget.
يهز الخيمة يهز كل شيء ويسفروا يمشوا عدة بلايص بعيدة شوي مسافات بعيدة هذاكم يمشوا على الصحراء ثم جمل يهز معناها الدبش ويهز الباجاج نتاع العباد يهز الخيمة يهز كل شيء ويسفروا يمشوا عليها حتى الخليج يمشوا السعودية يمشوا بلايص بكري كل يتنقلوا على الجمل يتنقلوا مثلا مجموعات يصفر يسفروا معناها بال30 40 واحد مع بعضهم الجمال تتفرق ثم المهير.
Unlike the caravans of old, Fauzi's convoy is not involved in trade. He and his men make their living by taking tourists on expeditions deep into the Sahara. The purpose is not to get to the other side. The desert is the destination.
I love Sahara because Sahara is very quiet. The city and here is not same. You see in Sahara, no hospital, nothing. If somebody feel headache, we know solution what we do. If somebody have ill or fever, we have the plants we use, and everybody in the end is okay.
As it has been for thousands of years, understanding the interdependence of humans and the natural world is the secret of survival in the Sahara. In this place where ancient enemies meet, for every mystery we reveal, far more must remain unspoken. Secrets of the Holy Spirit and of the bravest hearts, hidden in plain sight inside the Bardo National Museum.